You're welcome to Excel Class Hub. My name is Mr. Adekoya. I'll be teaching you JAMB Literature in English. Now, today we'll be looking at literary appreciation. You know very well that your literature JAMB syllabus is structured into two sections. The first one is literary appreciation, and that carries 30% of the entire score. Not only that, the remaining 70% equally involves some literary appreciation. For example, if you were to interpret the poem, the JAMB recommended poem Night by Wole Soyinka, you will have to deal with some literary appreciation in the poem. For example, you may see a question that will ask you to tell them what the symbol of night represents. What is the meaning of symbol? Does it mean the same thing as it does in other subjects? Or is just the same? Not really. There's more to it. It has a literary meaning more than you think. So we want to be looking at literary appreciation, which is the most important topic in literature in English. Now, what does literary appreciation mean? Appreciation has many meanings, but in this case, we're looking at just one. Appreciation can mean increase. Appreciation can mean increase in value. Appreciation can mean understanding. I'm interested in the second meaning. In fact, appreciation can mean gratitude. You see, it has multiple meanings. But whenever you see literary appreciation, please don't think it's a big thing or it's very small. It simply means your understanding of literary concepts. Can you take some time to think about that? Okay, I think you've got it. Understanding of literary concepts. So to be a professional, like a student is a baby professional, remove the baby there. You are a professional literature student. So you may not have got the 100%, but you are on your way. Now, join a profession, you have to start with the tools of that profession. So the basic tools of literary profession, they are called, all of them put together under literary appreciation. We must understand them. Now, this literary appreciation itself is also called literary criticism. Literary criticism. Another big word there, to criticize. When you see criticism, they say, oh, condemn. No, it does not mean to condemn. Criticism means offering informed analysis of a literary work. When you have information, when you are interpreting something based on knowledge, not based on feelings, not based on you like it or you don't like it, that is called criticism. So as a literature student, please suspend that type of criticism you normally do. When you see a literary work, you tell yourself, no, I don't like this work. It's not interesting. It's boring. Like many students will say they don't like Antony and Cleopatra by William Shakespeare. That is no literary criticism. You are not doing it the right way. That work, you have to understand it, read it from a background of literary knowledge. Like, oh, what are the tools that William Shakespeare uses in the story? When you know the tools, then you go to the exam hall, they ask you questions about them, then you get all of them correctly. Now, when we talk about literary criticism, there are questions that come from different backgrounds So we want to look at these types of criticism. We have different forms of appreciation and criticism before we go into the tools themselves. So the first criticism in literature is called formalism. So if you pick up a literary work like Night, that poem by Wole Soyinka, like Redemption Road by Elmer Shaw, that Liberian lady that wrote the novel, there will be questions on formalism. In fact, most questions on any literary work, they are based on formalism. Now, before we move to the next criticism, what is formalism? Something like formal, right? You can guess? Yes. Can we also reduce formal into the smallest level? That's form. Now, that's where we are going. So, formalism means interpretation or understanding a literary work based on its form. Please, form there means the work itself. So knowing me by who I am, not by what you've read about me. Do you get it? So when you are reading a literary work and you are responding to questions based on what is inside the literary work, what you are doing is called formalism. Now, what are the tools used in formalism? Okay, anytime you see questions like this, those questions, they are about formalism. The first one is called symbol, a symbolism. The next is image, an imagery. The next is diction. The next is persona or narrator. The next is characterization or character. Okay, let's look at these ones. Don't forget, diction carries three things in it. The first is mood and tone. The next is figures of speech. And the last one is structure. Don't forget, all these things applies to all literary works, whether you're dealing with drama, prose, or poetry. Now, this is, you see, most of the questions you see in literature, they are from here. The form of the work, that's what formalism is looking at. But don't think all your questions will be restricted to these in your exam. 70% of the questions will come from this angle, but we have other questions coming from other angles. Before we move to the next level, we need to look at what these things mean, at least on the surface of it. Symbol. What's a symbol? You see, I had to separate figures of speech from symbols. They are not the same. They are not the same. They are not the same. A symbol simply means any idea or object, physical object or idea. So an idea is something that is abstract. It can be a cultural practice. It can be a norm. It can be a habit. Do you understand? It can be any idea. Now, it can be an object. It can be a house. It can be a weapon. It can be anything. It can be a flag. Now, a symbol is any object or an idea that the persona or the author of a literary work uses to represent a major part of the subject matter. You look at something, a symbol will not end with one page or one chapter of a book. A symbol will run through the literary work, the book. You will not say, oh, I have read chapter 1, and the writer uses, let's say, the writer uses a hen, and you say, oh, that's a symbol. Please, if that hen you see in chapter 1 does not have any role that affects chapter 2 or chapter 3 or chapter 4 or chapter 5, please, that's not a symbol. It must have a long running impact on the whole of the text. So symbols, they are cultural. In fact, most of them are cultural. So we say these objects or ideas that are from the culture we all come from and then are used in literary work, we call them symbols. So look around you, there are many things that affect the way we think, the way we talk, the way we relate to one another. We call them symbols. Okay? They must have long-lasting impact on our lives as a people before we can call them symbols. Now, we have two types of symbols. Symbols, they are of two types. There's what we call allegory or allegorical symbols. You take your time to pronounce that? Yes, you got it right. Allegorical symbols. And the other one is called cultural symbols. Well, what we are just saying is, to what extent are these symbols popular? Now, some symbols they are in the minds of all humans. You can find them in every human societies. And some symbols are only found in some places, in some families, in some countries. And let's say old age. Is old age something that only happens to some people? Is it just you that think of old age? No. It is everywhere. It is everywhere. Now, what does old age mean? So all humans, it has one meaning. Old age is a symbol of wisdom. In fact, maybe I need to ask you, why do you think everybody wants to live long? Why do you think so? Well, when people are you'll be answering the question. Yes, you tell me maybe later. People want to, old age is associated with wisdom. So the disrespect that comes with, well, young age, youth, or all of that, you don't get to have that. So people will always give you a special pride of place when you are old. So maybe that's why people feel old age is status on its own. It's not what money can buy. It's like wealth on its own. So it's a symbol that is everywhere in literature. If you watch, for example, a movie or you read a play and you see one old man there advising a younger person on how to live their life, and if that person takes the old man's advice and have a better life, then what has the writer done there? The writer has been able to use what? Allegorical symbol to make you feel like, look, old age is wealth. You can't buy it. So when you see it, you value it. That's one symbol. Next time you read a literary work, please be paying attention to all the symbols. That you can be asking yourself this question: is it that this thing is everywhere, or is only found in this place? Then let's talk about cultural symbols. Cultural symbols are only found in certain societies. They are not found everywhere. Well, they may be animals, they may be any other objects that can only be found in those places but cannot be found elsewhere. Let's talk about oak trees, for example. OAK, oak trees. Do you think oak trees grow in Africa? Definitely not. You don't see oak trees growing in places where the weather is not temperate. Oak trees are massive, giant trees. They are very strong. So you cannot see trees that are very giant, except they they live in a place where they lose less water. Okay, so you can find oak trees in Europe, in North America, and all of that. Now, if you read someone's work, a literary work like a poem, and the writer is from Europe, and the writer uses an oak tree in that poem, what has he used there? That's a symbol. But what type of symbol is that? It's a cultural symbol because oak trees don't grow in Africa. So in that climb, in that part of the world, they know what an oak tree means. An oak tree means strength. An oak tree means strength, durability, or even longevity. You know, there's a difference between the two of them. Things are durable, then people have longevity. Living long, that's what, or staying for a long time, lasting for a long time, that's what both of them mean. But humans live long, so they have longevity. Then things stay or last long, so they have durability. So an oak tree, if you see it in a literary work, you know what the writer is trying to talk about. But in Africa, we don't have that. But also in Africa, we have our own cultural symbols. For example, that means those symbols must be found only in Africa, must not be found elsewhere, or must only be found in certain societies, but not everywhere in the world. One of them is the bride price. You'll be wondering, some of the literary works that are recommended to you, they talk that their main subject matter is the bride price. That's one. Like bride price, who pays bride price? Which parts of the world do they pay bride price? I know definitely that you are aware that bride price is not paid in Europe and it's not paid in North America. It's only paid in two continents, Africa and Asia. So the bride price becomes what? I can hear you. Okay, a cultural symbol. Now, there's a literary work recommended to you that is based on the bride price. Have you read Lion and the Jewel before? Okay, you remember the main theme of that work is the bride price. Now, it makes more sense in Africa to read that type of work because we readily understand how important the bride price is in this part of the world. But elsewhere, you will need to explain what it means. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Okay, so that's a cultural symbol. Then let's look at image. There's so much correlation between an image and a symbol. An image is a physical experience or object. Yes, it has to be physical. You see, unlike a symbol that can be physical or abstract, an image must be physical. Yes, do you see the difference? One is physical, the other is abstract. Can you see? Take some time to let that sink. Okay, you've got it. An image is what? Physical, then the symbol is abstract. Now, when you say an image is physical, you mean it appeals to one of the five sense organs. Or how do you know if something is physical? If your five senses are not working well. We talk about the sense of touch. So anything you can touch in literature, we call it an image. So your house is an image in literature. If you are watching a movie and you see a house, in literature, we don't just walk past that kind of thing. You pay attention to it. Now, what does this house mean? They will ask me questions about it later on. So, an image is physical. Now, please, the five sense organs, don't forget them. The sense of touch, the sense of sight, So that which you can see is an image too. You can see a color. You can see many things around you. Sense of smell is an image. So when you read a literary work, especially poems, don't say, oh, I don't know what this means. You should know what it means. When the writer writes something that talks about the sense of smell, like when he says, the place is pungent, the word pungent, what type of image is it? Does it appeal to? The image of what? Smell. Although smell and taste, they are related. Yes, when you talk about the senses of smell and taste, in health science, we've read that taste, the senses of taste and smell, they are connected. So if something smells sweet to your nostrils, your tongue too can feel the same thing. So, do you get it? So if something tastes sweet to your tongue, please, your nostrils too will interpret it as sweet. So they cannot interpret it in different ways. They cannot interpret it in different ways. So when the word pungent is an image representing both taste and smell. Then the sense of touch, the sense of sight, and all of them. So those are the things. So when you read a literary work, you can ask the question. In your exams, they will ask you, oh, this word, like in Night by Wole Soyinka used the word woman as a clam. Hey, some students will just read past that place and they will say, well, I just want to understand what the poem is talking about. Don't try to understand the big picture only. Try to get the small picture too. Okay, next time you read a literary work, you have two things in mind: the small picture and the big picture. The big picture is the subject matter. Almost every student knows that. But the small picture is what makes the difference. Like all these tiny things, tiny details we're talking about. So, Woman as a Clam in The Night by Wole Soyinka. What do you think it means as an image? What is a clam? And what's a woman? Or who is a woman? Why does the writer use the word woman? Do you get it? So woman is an image in that poem now. Clam is an image in that poem. Both are images of what? Representing senses of touch, of sight. Are you getting it? All right. Now, a clam. Have you seen a clam before? Maybe you look up the word or you look up the image, the picture, online to be sure. A clam is a sea creature. You don't see clams elsewhere. They are marine animals. So you see them around the sea. And they are so unique because they are arthropods. And they are exoskeletal, organisms. What do they look like? What's special about them? They have two parts of equal length, equal size, joined at one end. So from one end, they are being closed, they are being shut and opened. Why is Soyinka calling a woman a clam in Night? There are certain things about the clam. Number one, the clam is a symbol of fertility. Especially in Europe and everywhere in the world where they have a clam. Clams don't go barren. They are always fertile. So, Soyinka said woman as a clam so that people will know why he mentioned woman there. That, not just woman, because woman has many other characteristics, but woman as a clam, as a fertile person. Maybe Soyinka should have used man. If he had used man, that would not have made some sense. Because what we call fertility, productivity, please, biological productivity, except in the sciences, men don't have it. Yes, fertility is something of women. You know what I mean? Men are fertile. Yes, it's true. But it was later on they started applying fertility to men. It was women that they used to call the fertile person because they are the ones who reproduce. Or can men give birth? No. Okay, it's only women that can give birth. So the clam there is fertile. Now he uses his fertility, and you know something about fertility in anybody, especially in women, is that they take possession, full possession of their children. They don't want anything, any harm to come close to them. So just as those women don't like any harm to come close to their children, these evildoers called military leaders or just leaders of African countries since the British left, they are the people Shoinka called women, and they are the clams. They claim they are the ones that produce us, just as the woman will produce or have many children, just as the clam will have many a lot of offspring. These people too, they have many citizens under their watch. And they claim they are protecting us like a woman will protect the children. But they are not protecting the citizens. Now you get why Shoinga used it. Okay. Now let's look at another one. Diction. The diction carries three things in it. The first is mood and tone. Both of them are about how. They are not about what. Can you take some time to let that sink in? Tone and mood, they're about how. They are not about what. That is how the words are used. Not what the words do, but how the words are used. Yes, words can have meaning. You know very well. As I'm speaking to you, my words have meaning. So if my words have meaning, then that's not the tone, that's not the mood. Before we talk about tone and mood, you must look at how do those words, how are they used? How do they sound to you, for example? For example, if you say two words are synonyms, why not use one? Why do you use the one you use? Why not use the other? For example, why do you call some women or some females girls? Why not call them women? Don't you think there's something somewhere? You will not say, oh, because people call them girls, and that's not true. That word you use, you are just communicating, no problem. But the tone, the mood that goes with calling a female, a young female human, a girl, is that, well, an immature female human, the one that does not deserve your respect, maybe you never knew, the one that does not deserve your respect, the one you are older than, the one that you are patronizing to. So those are the things. If you check the origins of those words, you'll find out that, wow, this is what all these things mean. So as words are used, there are certain things that go with them. Look at another word. Why is it that we call some people, we use some titles like Doctor, Mr., Comrade, Mrs., Miss. All these words, they have their meanings. But as you use any one, please note that the tone is different. Okay, if you say you don't want any title, that you don't like any title, then the appropriate title people normally use, okay, about you, they say comrade. The word comrade means just a title of respect given to anybody when you don't want to specify their status. Do you get it? So the only word that does not show your status, that means you are statusless, a statusless person. You don't have status. That's the meaning of comrade. You don't have wealth. You don't have gender. You don't have. You are not a professor. You are nowhere to be found. You're just. Do you get it? Many people prefer to be addressed as comrades. Or maybe they understand the tone that goes with the word. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Comrade. So if you read a literary work next time, you can just Google up 2 or 3 words from the literary work, especially a poem, and you get you just get the origin of the words or the meanings elsewhere or something. It will give you some things that are hidden. And you now use that knowledge you've got to analyze that literary work very well. Is it clear to you? And you can also be able to help yourself. There is a dictionary called Dictionary of Literature. If you can lay your hands on it, there's much more to learn about the mood and tone. Now, again, they may be related in terms of being about how the words are used. Now let's look at the differences between them. Mood means the dominant feeling throughout a literary work. The dominant feeling throughout a literary work. Now, if you wake up, you always have a feeling. Even now, you have a feeling. There's a way you feel. Are you happy? Do you feel loved? Do you feel sad? How do you feel? That is what we call mood. Now, the choice of words will tell us what the mood is. Now, not only that, let's look at the tone. The tone means not the feeling this time, but how you're feeling affects the way you relate to things. Do you know that if, for example, you feel happy, you feel loved, it is very likely that you'll be willing to be nice to people around you. Your attitude towards people around you will be very positive. So that attitude towards the people around you that is positive is what we call tone. Please, as a literature student, don't take the two together at a time. Understand the tiny difference between the two of them. Okay, now the mood and the tone. That's the difference between them. Now let's look at the figures of speech. There are so many figures of speech, but there are some of them I want you to. Okay, we are on figures of speech, and there's so many figures of speech. We see there are 50 figures of speech you need to know. The JAMB set questions on these figures of speech regularly. And again, if you are looking for a very resourceful material on figures of speech, JAMB recommended one to us. It is called Glossary of Literary Terms. Glossary of Literary Terms. Of Literary Terms. By A.H. Abrams. You can lay your hands on it. It's authoritative. Everything about it is correct. Okay. Now, what are these figures of speech that we are looking at? But again, before I look at the different figures of speech, what do they mean? Are they the same as symbols? No. Now, a figure of speech okay. A figure of speech is any expression, anything you say, any word you use, any phrase you use, any sentence you use that brings together two different experiences. That is the meaning. You may be wondering, what are these two different experiences? Do you know that most times when you speak, when you use words, when you use even one word, that word is not really as ordinary as you think. That word carries other things in it. So if a word carries other meanings in it, that word becomes a figure of speech. And even if a phrase does the same thing, then it's a figure of speech. Like, look at this. The word red now. If I use the word red to mean just a color, then it's not a figure of speech. But if I use the word red to mean another thing, then that means I have two types of audience listening to me. Those that will think I'm referring to something ordinary or just any color, and those that know that I am talking about something else. Anytime you talk and your word has more than one meaning, so that you can have two different audiences, you have used a figure of speech. Now, like the word red, on Valentine's Day, people would like to paint the entire town red. Oh, do you think they are going to paint? They are going to get red paint or something, or just because they wear red clothes, red these, red shirts? No, I'm not referring to that. No, if you think that's what I'm referring to, that yeah, you are in the wrong audience. You are probably one of those people that think I'm referring to something literal. No, what I mean by people are going to paint the entire town red is that they are going to do a lot of fun activities. They are going to feel so lively. So red there means liveliness. That's what I have in mind. All fun activities. If it means singing, playing music, going to clubs, or what, any fun activity, that's what I'm referring to when I say paint the town red. Is it clear? Now this is it. Do you know that a language can have different dialects, and as a result, some dialects can be more figures of speech than others? So figures of speech, they are in every language. But if the language is very colloquial, meaning it's not a language that is used for business, then check that language very well. It will be loaded with a lot of figures of speech. But you see that type of language you use to do business, the one they used to do, so many like tech or something. Yeah, they have figures of speech too, but they are very minimal. People are looking for words that will do their business, not words that will have multiple meanings. Don't forget what I say. What I mean by figures of speech when I say a word that will have more than one meaning. But in every business, in every profession, they are not allowed to use one word that has what? Multiple meanings. They are using one word that has just one meaning. In that case, do you think those professions have figures of speech? No, 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 no. They don't have figures of speech. They don't have figures of speech because they are always looking for one word, one meaning, one word, one meaning. We are not looking at that. We are looking at a word that will have more than one meaning so that we can speak to two different types of audience. There's a book named The Man Died by Wole Soyinka. Have you read it? Maybe you have to go and read it. It was written during the Civil War when he was incarcerated, when he was in prison. In that book, Soyinka wrote it somewhere that the prison yard should release, that he had some people who came from University of Lagos because he was a professor of comparative literature at that time. So some of his colleagues came to ask for his release. So he was narrating the story in that book that some of his colleagues came to ask for his release, and those people were 4 in number. And he called them, guess what he called them? He called them 4 Greek poets. They are not actually poets. Shoyinka does not mean poets there. He does not mean poets. He's drawing a similarity between the Greek poets of those days of 2,000, 3,000 years ago and the status of those lecturers. Just as those Greek poets were given all the status of the attention those days, he felt those lecturers deserved the same recognition, the same status, the same fame that those people deserved. Now, it did not stop there. He said, look at the figures of speech in his words there. And I said, 4 Greek poets came to ask for his release. And then they wrote a letter to the controller of the prison that the person in your custody is a currency that is kept out of circulation. I'm quoting him directly. You'll be wondering, why is he speaking jargon? Why can't he just go straight to the point? Well, that's what it means to be literary. That's what figures of speech means. Now, a currency is kept out of circulation. You'll be wondering, I'm sure the warders will be asking the question, this is not CBN. We don't keep money, we don't keep valuables here. We have just a human. And not just any human, just the one, the fugitive, the one that has broken the law. That's the person they have with them. So they don't have any money with them. They don't have any valuable with them. So why would the poets accuse them of keeping, currency out of circulation? But you know very well that that's a figure of speech. Now, currency, a human being is not a currency. But why did Shoyinka say currency? Well, Shoyinka, as at that time, he was already something of value to the literary community in the whole of Africa, and not just that, even to the entire Nigerians as at that time. And he was right. If he was not a currency, would anybody have imprisoned him? If you are not important to people, would they be interested in whether you are alive or dead? You must be important to them. So he's not exaggerating. He was a currency. So the government of the day denied him access to the people that would spend him, and even denied the spenders of the money access to the money. The people needed him. The literary community needed him. He was their currency that they spent. It was valuable to them. And now you are getting what we mean by figures of speech. In literature, we don't joke about figures of speech. And there's a big reason for it. Not that we just have lazy people writing in figures of speech. Now let's talk about why we need figures of speech. There are many reasons. One of them is that figures of speech help us to draw blood without punching a hole. I hope you remember the way I've used my figure of speech too. You draw blood. Like, how do you get something done without offending people? How do you tell evildoers that they are doing evil? I don't want them to feel offended immediately. How? How do you talk to the public and the government will not come and stop you from talking to them? How do you get the public to action and the government will not get angry? You will need figures of speech. You will need to learn how to speak in metaphors and parables so that the enlightened ones will understand what you are talking about. Because, you see, in all honesty, all literary works, they are bombs, they are weapons, they are missiles. Because the government that will censor them is not interested in some things they are doing, because those things they hurt the image of the government intends to project. So do you think if the government really knows what those things are, do you think they'll be willing to let them have those things published? No way. The government of the day, the government of 1968, of 1969 in Nigeria, that's the government of General Yakubu Gowon. Do you think that government that imprisoned Wole Soyinka would have allowed Wole Soyinka to have the book published if they had known that that was what he was talking about? They would have said, no, this man is too arrogant. He feels he knows it all. So we will not have him released. But he speaks to the enlightened community. Those ones they understand him. And he gets them into action. He gets their support. Those 4 Greek poets that came to visit him, they went to UK, they told the government of UK, they went to the different professors, different universities in UK and all over the world, Nigerians diaspora, they went to rouse them to action. So the government did not know that those people were working behind, that the so-called currency that was kept in circulation had already given the message to those people, and they worked with the information. If you don't know how to write in metaphors, you may not go far as a public speaker or as a public personality. Now, what are these figures of speech? What are these? Then please also don't forget, the greatest among them is our Lord Jesus Christ. Do you remember? Or maybe like even in any other religion or something. When Jesus Christ was speaking, he was speaking in parables whenever he was in public. He has one reason for doing that. He was using metaphors. First, he knew that most people that came to meet him, they call themselves the general public. They were there only because of what they wanted to get. They didn't really love him. So he knew they were outsiders. They never wanted to be part of the insiders. So he treated them accordingly. He was speaking in metaphors and figures of speech, so that only the enlightened ones understood him. Why would he have to convince them, since they were not interested in him in the first place? Do you get it? So you need to know how to write and how to speak in figures of speech. What are these most popular figures of speech that we have? I'll list out some, then we move to the next one. All right, we have 37 here so far. Now, the first one is the metaphor. Another one is simile. Another one is synecdoche. Another one is metonymy. Another one is antonomasia. Another one is anagnorisis. Another one is carpe diem. Another one is paradox. Another one is antithesis. Another one is climax. Another one is oxymoron. Another one is hyperlage. Another one is epithet. We have lysis. We have euphemism. Another one is pathos. Another one is personification. Another one is pathetic fallacy. We have another one as anaphora. Another one is chiasmus. Another one is cataphora. We have caesura. We have enjambment. You know, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. Okay, we have 25 here so far. I've already given you personification, okay, and all of them. Now let's look at another one. Persona or narrator. Persona or narrator. Well, you may be wondering why we have to talk about this one. Why do we talk about persona? In literature, you know, it's a profession. So there are lots of things that are going on that an outsider may not know anything about. Now, a persona is the personality, is the human being, it's the voice. It may not be a human being, it can even be a leaf, it can be a thing, it can be an animal. Yes, it doesn't have to be a human being. So it is the character or human being or anybody else that tells the audience the story. Is the one that claims the experience happens to them or they witness it. So that's who we call a persona. The persona is not the same as the author. Please, students, stop doing that. In literature, we hardly focus on the author, especially when it comes to formalism. Now, this formalism, we have removed the author from the equation. We are only focusing on the work. So why do we have to talk about the author? We don't have to. No, let us bring the author in. The persona is the personality that witnesses what is going on in the story. And he is now telling us his own account of what he witnessed. Now look at this. If the